This book is also known as Learning to Slay the Gods at Hogwarts and Chainsaw Sword+Explosive Gun. Times have changed, wizards. In the 41st millennium of darkness, Bern faced the demonized Genus Anglon in the subspace and was fiercely attacked by the Spinebreaker. But his soul was neither assimilated by subspace pollution nor returned to the Golden Throne. Bern came to the world of Harry Potter. P.S. The content of this book is equally friendly to readers who are not familiar with Warhammer and Harry Potter, and can be consumed with peace of mind. The protagonist will not be tragic. Keywords of the novel. Hogwarts. Bern returns from Warhammer No Pop-Ups, Hogwarts. Bern returns from Warhammer Complete Collection Download, Hogwarts. Bern returns from Warhammer Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Bern's Laghorn. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Bern's Slughorn. On November 1, 1981, in London, Harrow Department Store's Backstreet. An explosion that occurred here has left many Londoners feeling anxious and unable to sleep all night due to frequent IRA attacks in the past decade. However, the Times refuted the rumors the next day. Although the explosion resulted in 13 deaths, it was actually a secondary disaster caused by a gas leak. We hope that the public will not be too alarmed. In this era, there is no internet, and people have limited channels to receive news information. Most British people still believe in the news of a credit endorsement from a well-established newspaper with a long history. Only a small portion of the British know that it's not a gas leak at all. After all, that's not what they read in the newspaper. They are reading the prophets daily. Merlin's beard. How dare that little one! Horace Slughorn exclaimed as he looked at the newspaper delivered by the owl in the morning. He sat on an oversized velvet Scottish sofa decorated with tassels. There is a circular coffee table given to him by his colleague Professor Bubaki next to the sofa. There was a cup of black tea, a basket of crucible cakes and a dish of his favorite preserved pineapple on the tea table. However, after reading the headline on the front page of today's newspaper, I saw the former Hogwarts professor who used to dress up like a little rascal, but was actually a bit handsome, waving his wand crazily. This former Hogwarts professor, who resigned from his position as a potion professor yesterday with great relief, suddenly lost his appetite for eating anything more. Just because of that damn guy, he ended up with more than a dozen lives and 2 young wizards' great lives. Originally, all of this. Bang! A slight burst of breath interrupted Horace, who was deeply self-blaming. Momo, what's up? Momo is a household elf who wears a pocket-like shirt made of silk and looks very clean. She bent down and bowed to her master, with her pointed and flat long nose almost poking into the carpet. Master, there are 2 guests outside, Professor Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall. The domestic elf spoke quickly in a sharp voice. Upon hearing the news, Horace couldn't help but frown. But considering the identity of the visitor, he quickly stood up and took out his wand, pointing it towards him. Suddenly, his original home cotton nightgown turned into a proper wizard robe. Good morning, Horace. Good morning, Professor Slughorn. Good morning, Dumbledore, and McGonagall. Come on in, Momo has made a dragon milk crucible cake. You must taste it well. Horace greeted the 2 visitors with a smile and warmly invited them into his home. However, both of his former colleagues shook their heads in refusal. Horace, my old friend. Finally, Dumbledore broke the awkwardness by speaking first. Please express our condolences. By the way, Maliva and I have come to see you this time to convey an unfortunate message. As he spoke, Dumbledore gently waved his hand and a basket of thorns flew over from behind the old man. There is a sleeping baby lying in the basket. Yesterday, Sirius was arrested. He used the Thunderbolt explosion curse to destroy a Muggle street, resulting in the death or injury of more than 10 Muggles. Unfortunately, the parents of this child are all on the list of victims. Their surnames are Slughorn. This child is your blood relative. Upon hearing these words, Horace couldn't help but open his mouth wide due to momentary emotional excitement. Dumbledore continued, "Unlike your brother and nephew, I have confirmed that this child is a wizard. Therefore, I have decided to bring him over to you instead of handing him over to Muggles' welfare institution for upbringing." Merlin's beard. "This is a tragedy. It's also a miracle." Horace Slughorn burst into tears. This old wizard, who is over 80 years old, is now crying like a little doll. The little elf named Momo has already stood at the old master's lap. Upon hearing this news, her two big eyes were filled with tears, but a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. There was a successor to the Slughorn family, which was actually great news for the family's loyal little elves. "Albus, what's the name of this child?" After crying for a moment, Horace wiped his eyes with a brand new wizard robe. He quickly grabbed Dumbledore's basket fixed in mid-air with a floating spell. "His name is Bern Slughorn. June 25, 1984. Early in the morning, after getting well groomed and dressed, Horace rarely had breakfast with Bern before leaving the house. He had a big belly and walked like a fierce male sea lion. Today, he is going to the Ministry of Magic to apply for the use of a door key to go abroad, attend the 3-day Extraordinary Pharmacist annual conference, and speak at the conference for his former student Damalix Belby, proving the effectiveness of the second version of Wolf Venom Potion, improved by the latter, as well as promoting the epoch-making significance of inventing this magic potion. For this reason, he deliberately spent half a month personally brewing several bottles of second edition wolf poison potions. Afterwards, he used his own relationship channels to send him to the Overturned Alley, half sold and half given to some werewolf volunteers wandering on the edge of the wizarding world, and conducted experiments on the human body of magic potions and collected experimental data. However, as he was leaving home for 3 days, Horace specifically instructed Bern to follow Momo's arrangements and not be naughty before leaving. He promised, "When I go home, I will bring you a large candy gift package from the Duke of Bees." Bern happily agreed. Bern has little resistance to delicious candies and enjoys eating sweets very much. It can be said that he can accept all sweet food except bean curd jelly served with sauce. Eating sweets was a very luxurious pleasure for him in the past. Moreover, this once refers to a long period of warfare spanning over 300 years. At that time, the food he had eaten the most was a nutritional cream with added ceramic powder and a large amount of additives. Not only was the taste indescribable, but it was also highly likely to die on the spot if consumed by ordinary people. Only interstellar warriors can eat it as daily food. Bern is a time traveler, and coming to the world of Harry Potter is actually his second time traveling. His last journey was spent in Warhammer world. At that time, he initially woke up in a survival pod with a static force field, and the one who opened the pod for him was a space wolf, or more precisely, a jackal from that legion. Big Huff Lucas. As a newcomer, he could only claim to have lost his memory, and then spent a few happy years together with Lucas, who also rescued him while fighting against interstellar pirates. At the very least, following the startup team, especially the Wolf brothers of the Space Wolf, he didn't feel much aggrieved during those years. However, because Bern did not possess the genetic seeds of Ruth, he was unable to join the Space Wolf. In the end, he could only embark on a journey of searching for relatives, alone, experiencing many unimaginable things for interstellar warriors. For example, he cursed those mourners who were all brainless and unlucky, yet followed them to the end to fight against the terrifying Tyrannosaurus Zerg in order to protect the human planet. For example, he despised the white scars that were full of non-mainstream racing enthusiasts, and eventually followed that person around, sending a little girl who had lost her parents to a human settlement. For example, he choreographed those dark angels to be riddled with heavenly killers, but in the end, in order to destroy a gene thief family, he chose to cooperate with a team of dark angels and drown all the blasphemous creatures who worshipped the four-armed pseudo-gods in the sewer of the nest. He once fought fiercely against the bureaucrats of the trial court like the head wolf, Logan, and also together with the Grey Knight, killed the demonic cubs who entered the material world from the subspace. He once disguised himself as a servant and boarded a commercial Ronin spaceship for a ticket evasion journey. He also took an orbital lander to land on the surface of the planet during a turbulent green tide, giving a 360-degree roundabout to the Green Warlord who was making the WAC declaration in person. He has killed abnormal black bean sprouts with his bare hands more than once, and has also killed many intolerable alien forms. In the long and short 300 years, he gradually grew into a legendary figure in the Milky Way. However, after such a long time, he never found his own battle group and did not officially return to the team. Until the end of that journey, he met a newly awakened star god who used going home as a temptation to let Bern enter the subspace instead of him and seek something for him. I couldn't find that thing, to be honest. Bern can't remember it clearly anymore. He doesn't even remember how long he wandered in the subspace. In a world vastly different from the material world, time has no meaning. The only suitable measure he could find was how many demons he had slaughtered. 3750.4. Half, this is the accurate number for him to slay demons on his journey to subspace. The reason why there is the concept of half is that he finally encountered an upgraded pathogen. The eternal slave Anglon, who was too strong, and Bern was also too tired at the time. His armor was already shattered, his explosive gun had no bullets left, and his power sword became unstable. So much so that he could only watch Anglon use the spine crusher to smash his head, while he used all his strength to thrust the power sword into the heart of the demon pathogen. The last sight he saw was fragments of the power sword splattering everywhere, the blood of the demon prince with no material significance, and the spiritual lightning mixed with flames that burst out of his own hands. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Ordinary Little Wizard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Ordinary Little Wizard, Momo, I'm going out for a trip. Not long after breakfast, leaving behind a word, regardless of whether the household elf who was busy tidying up heard it or not, Bern shook off his short legs and ran out of the Slughorn's door like a wind and fire wheel. Unlike many wizards who prefer to live alone or specialize in villages where wizards gather, the Slughorn family is located on George Square next to Glasgow City Hall. Due to the addition of 2 spells, Muggle Destroyer Curse, and Safeguard, this Victorian-era 3-story building is neither accidentally stumbled upon by Muggle travelers nor easily discovered by some dark wizards. Although taking care of the only heir of the family meticulously, Horace would not strictly confine little Bern in the mansion like raising magical animals. When he has free time, he will take Bern to the nearby area to see and experience the daily lives of Muggles. Of course, this is mainly to prepare for Bern's future education, as Hogwarts has an elective course on Muggles. Horace has heard that the Weasley family, who are also pure-blooded, has produced a genius boy named Bill Weasley, who was born in this year's OW. I scored a full 12.0 in the LS exam, breaking the history of Hogwarts. However, like the vast majority of parents in the world, Horace also adheres to the concept of, it's better for the child to be at home. He felt that Bern could do what the Weasley children could do, so he made arrangements for him early on. The main feature is an involution. However, although he had already caught Grandpa Horace's careful eye early on, Bern had no resistance to it. In fact, after a brief infancy, Bern soon found himself leaving Warhammer world. Even when he saw the domesticated elf Momo, an interstellar warrior, especially a warrior from the Dark Angel Battalion, he would most likely see her as a limited trust and contact alien like the Black Watcher. After that, he realized that he was not returning to the originally peaceful Earth, but came to the world of Harry Potter. However, he still felt grateful for it. There is no other reason. In the dark era of Warhammer world, being born as a person most of the time means that difficulties and hardships will always accompany you. Darkness and oppression haunt every human after the 41st millennium. Even the strongest interstellar warrior like a demigod must use faith and a sense of honor in the Emperor to resist the sense of despair that may arise at any moment. Compared to the powerless despair, the pain of studying is nothing, and Bern said it's no problem to suffer 10 times more. Today, let's go to the £1 shop to buy something, and then go back to continue reading, exercising. Wearing a wrinkled blue striped T-shirt and ripped suspender pants, carrying a single-shoulder cotton bag with a few Muggle newspapers on the shoulder, wearing a newsboy hat on top of the head, barefoot. Little Bern bounced through George Square, feeling very excited and happy. His outfit was carefully designed by Horace in combination with Muggle children's fashion trends for Bern. This combination is led by a children's group called Baker Street Gorilla, who easily integrate into the adult Muggle community through such disguise. This is the original statement that Horace saw from a Muggle research monograph. However, the old Hogwarts professor did not notice that the monograph cited literature from the 19th century. However, Bern didn't care about the scrutiny of men and women along the way, as the places he was going to were very attractive to him. That is a second-hand store located in the corner of George Square, displaying daily necessities, office supplies, clothing, as well as hardware parts and other second-hand goods. Its name is also very down-to-earth, just called £1, highlighting the main feature of its products sold. Dingling bell pushing open the glass door of the £1 second-hand store, Bern walked excitedly into the store. The bald boss next to the cashier looked at the barefoot newsboy and couldn't help but frown. "Hey kid, where are your adults? This is not the place you should come alone. Also, listen to me, if you're hungry, you can go to Winston Street next to you. There's a food bank there that can provide you with free food." "I'm not hungry," Bourne replied, seemingly unaware that the other party was indirectly driving him away. Instead, he took out a stack of money from the pocket in front of his suspenders, which added up to about 15 or 16 pounds, mixed with some coins. Although this makes him look more like a little homeless person who makes a living by begging, it also proves that he does have a certain level of spending power. After thinking for a moment, the bald boss nodded and kindly reminded him, "You can go to the third-row shelf to find a pair of shoes. There should be 1 or 2 pairs that match your size over there." "Thank you, but I want to buy something else," said Bourne as he piled up the pile of change on the checkout counter. Then he walked to the shelf where tool products were placed and picked up a second-hand fire chainsaw hanging there. Horace once brought him to the £1 shop, and Bern was already interested in this treasure and firmly remembered the selling price on its label. In order to raise enough change, he helped Horace deal with a batch of potion materials and peeled several barrels of frog spines. Of course, this is also Horace indirectly giving him a potion enlightenment class. And Bern's harvest was the Muggle currency. In addition to the fire chainsaw, Bern also selected several tools and parts in one go, all of which were what he saw during his last visit here. After obtaining the goods he needed, Bern didn't wait for the shopkeeper to say anything before running out of the door of the £1 shop. Although the bald shop owner chased after him, chainsaws, parts, and other items didn't seem like products that a child would buy. However, when he ran out, he found that there was no trace of Bern in the square. Strange. Why did that child suddenly disappear? The bald shopkeeper turned back to look at the change on the counter, and then looked out at George's Square outside the door. He was deeply puzzled. Bern is actually quite puzzled. He should have walked home through George's Square as he walked out of the £1 shop, but somehow, he turned around and walked into a small alley next to the shop, as if something was attracting him there. There is indeed something more precisely, there is a small thing standing in the center of the small alley street with a big bang. However, even if it stands straight, its body is only 3 feet. Its appearance resembles some of the goblins that Bern has seen in the garden, and it also has a large head that is out of proportion to its body and a sturdy foot with protruding bones. However, this little thing is taller than a goblin and has a sharper nose. Its skin color is purple, not the soil-like brown of goblins. Seeing Bern looking at him, although he was also nervous for a moment, he immediately grinned strangely and let out a sly grin. This laughter seemed to have a kind of magic, and the fact was indeed so, because the scientific name of the purple-skinned little monster that appeared in front of Bern was Evil Spirit, a 4X level magical animal living in the Black Forest. The reason why this kind of monster, which can only do some pranks at most, can be rated as 4X level like Phoenix and Poison Horn beasts, is because their mischievous laughter has special magic. Even an adult wizard may accidentally fall into the path of an evil spirit, fall into an inexplicable memory, and then forget what is happening in front of them. However, if an adult wizard is hit, most evil spirits will choose to take the opportunity to escape, but if faced with underage wizards or muggle children, the evil spirits are likely to choose to eat the victims. It is precisely because of their cruel cannibalistic habits that the German Ministry of Magic has been continuously hunting and killing evil spirits for centuries, greatly reducing the population size of these cannibalistic monsters. The latest reported attack on humans by evil spirits involved a 6-year-old wizard named Bruno Schmidt from the late 19th century. As a result, the young wizard used his father's foldable crucible to smash the evil spirit's head and kill it. Of course, this attack anti-kill case is actually just an isolated case. Moreover, when evil spirits have partners, they will become extremely dangerous. Just trying to confuse a little wizard, why did you take so long to get it done? As the evil spirit smiled and lured Bern into the deep alley, a man in a leather jacket suddenly stood up from behind a tin trash can. Faced with his accomplice's questioning, the evil spirit's eyes immediately showed a look of resentment, but it actually did not have the courage to passionately confront this sarcastic guy. "Is this the boy from the Laghorn family?" The man pointed to Bern, who was carrying a bunch of second-hand tools, and asked the evil spirit. The latter nodded. He, that's good, that's good." The man with exceptionally strong hair stroked his beard, opened his specially crafted mouth full of sharp teeth, and let out a sickly laugh. "I just need to take a bite, Slughorn, and this so-called Holy 28 clans will be extinct." The man smiled wickedly and said. "Or even worse. The worst scenario is becoming a werewolf. This man's name is Finral Greyback, and he is a werewolf. Unlike many wizards who became werewolves due to being bitten by werewolves, Greyback's parents were both werewolves. If werewolves are also divided into pure blood and mixed blood, then Fenrir must belong to pure blood, and he is also a werewolf born in the summer. According to legend, a werewolf born in the summer will grow into the king of werewolves. What bloodline of the sacred 28 families has not been easily confused by evil spirits? Fenrir looked at Bern twice and mocked proudly, "He's just an ordinary little wizard." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Fenris has no wolves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Fenris has no wolves. Since his youth, Finral Greyback has been pursuing the ideal of biting and infecting as many wizards as possible. Soon after reaching adulthood, he successfully sent himself to Azkaban. Originally, he would spend the rest of his life under the watchful eye of the Dementor, and it is highly likely that one day he will die suddenly in a cold cell due to excessive force during the Dementor's kiss. However, taking advantage of the rise of Voldemort and the chaos in the wizarding world, Finral Greyback managed to escape from Azkaban. During the 11 years of Voldemort's turmoil, he simply defected to the past and became a loyal dog of the Dark Lord. During that time, Voldemort would bite whoever he asked him to, causing many wizards to feel worried and afraid that their families, especially children, would be bitten by Fenrir and infected into werewolves. After Voldemort fell, the Death Eaters who followed him quickly fell and scattered, many of whom were arrested and brought to justice by the Ministry of Magic. After a quick interrogation, they were thrown into Azkaban. Compared to these unlucky people, Fenrir was fortunate enough to become a fish in the net and avoid the tragedy of revisiting his hometown. But he still had to hide from the horrors of the Ministry of Magic. However, despite this, Fenrir, who holds the title of wanted criminal, still sneaks into the wizarding world every once in a while, infecting or killing one or two young wizards with his sharp teeth, continuing to spread his terrifying reputation in this way. He never gave up his crazy and dark ideal: to create a group of werewolves and become the leader of this group. It is precisely because of this that when he heard the news of Damocles Belby inventing the wolf poison potion and successfully optimizing it into a second version, Fenrelton was furious. If werewolves are no longer excluded by wizards, and if they can rely on that kind of bullshit potion to live a normal life, how can the pack of wolf cubs gather into a pack of wolves, and which wolf cub would still care about their leader? Fenrir stared at Bern, who was lost in thought, and said in a wicked voice, "Little devil, don't blame me. If you blame me, blame your meddlesome grandfather, who made him have to personally endorse his student platform in order to make a name for himself. He attacked Bern with an evil spirit, but it was actually purposeful. Although this guy doesn't dare to make a big fuss at the annual meeting of the Extraordinary Pharmacists Association, he still dares to come and steal while Horace is out." The wizarding world was already a relatively small circle, and after some investigation, Fenrir quickly learned that Horace had a nephew like Born. He wanted to bite Bern and transform him into a werewolf, in order to threaten the wizards who invented and promoted the wolf poison potion. As he spoke, this guy twisted his neck as the already thick hair on his face suddenly grew again, almost covering his entire face. His mouth and nose gradually protruded forward. Unlike other werewolves that have been transformed, the purebred Finral Greyback not only passively transforms at full moon, but also actively transforms into a werewolf on a regular basis. This is also his secret. Many of his bitten victims and their relatives and friends are puzzled, why would they still be attacked by werewolves even if it is not a full moon? Some wizards once speculated that Finral may consciously preserve some of his sanity at full moon, using containers such as glass bottles to preserve the saliva secreted during his transformation into a werewolf and carrying wolf venom. But in reality, this guy can transform into a werewolf anytime and anywhere, and then bite people to spread wolf poison. Fortunately, werewolf venom infects ordinary people, rather than wizards, and is likely to only kill them instead of transforming them into werewolves, otherwise Fenrir could easily create a pack of wolves. It's better to be confused. Little devil, remember this great name. The king of the wolf pack is named Fenrir. Becoming a werewolf, Fenrir licked his yellow teeth with his rough tongue, brewing emotions and promoting more saliva secretion. Because he can transform into a werewolf at any time, Fenrir has more experience than ordinary werewolves, and he quickly takes off his clothes while transforming. Then, he shook off the unpleasant pace of starting at least 10 years, with red eyes, and walked towards the little boy who was still confused by the evil spirit. He did something wrong. The wizards of the Harry Potter world have a unity between the soul and the body. For example, when Avada gnaws on a big melon, he clearly kills the soul, and the body of a person who has been cursed will immediately die, rather than becoming a soulless vegetable or living dead. It is because his body is still a child that he is influenced by the mischievous laughter of evil spirits that has a child-specific characteristic in the Harry Potter world. Otherwise, with the resilience required to enter the subspace and face the demons like Drago in his previous life, how could he be influenced by something similar to a fart spirit? Originally, this werewolf's malicious plan was almost successful, but he had to yawn and come up with a keyword, Fenrir. Upon hearing a familiar word, Bern couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, then blinked again. Isn't it Fenris? Influenced by the demonic laughter of the evil spirit, he is actually still immersed in memories of the past. And when he heard the word Fenrir, that distant memory was gently lifted like a veil, revealing something hidden deeper in his memory. Fenris, a planet intertwined with ice and fire. Every 3 to 4 tera-years, this planet can orbit around the star in its galaxy. During the summer months, the volcano on Fenris will erupt frequently, and the lava flows ejected from the crater will turn large areas into a sea of fire and boil some of the ocean, causing huge floods and tides. And as this planet enters the long winter, the temperature drops so low that most of its surface is frozen. From space orbit, Fenris at this moment looks like an ice ball. Being able to live on planets with such harsh environments, every creature in the Fenris world is very resilient, and one of them is exceptionally resilient and strong. They are called Fenris wolves. Oh, by the way, there are actually no wolves on Fenris. Also, there is a group of wild men who enjoy drinking honey wine, eating large chunks of meat, and shouting, for Ruth and the whole father. As these images flashed through his mind, Bern suddenly came to his senses and saw the werewolf pouncing on him with a wide-open mouth. Wolfen. Bern was surprised for a moment. But he quickly realized that he had now entered the world of Harry Potter. No, this is a werewolf. He remembered several bedtime stories that Horace had specially told him for the purpose of education and entertainment, fog, and immediately realized the danger he was facing. More than 300 years of combat experience have instantly boosted Bern's spirit, accelerating the secretion of adrenaline. He instantly lifted his leg and kicked the evil spirit away, using physical means to block out the annoying demonic laughter. Little ghost, have you woken up? You're pretty good, you didn't scare me to wet my pants. Seeing Bern's own accomplice kick him unconscious, Fenrir Greyback not only didn't get angry, but also burst into laughter. In his opinion, this was just the last highlight moment of the little ghost in front of him, there was nothing to worry about. And Bern kept staring at Fenrir, spinning his body around him and leaning against the wall of the alley. Because he had seen too many strong winds and waves, Bern not only had no fear at this moment, but also remained quite calm and composed. However, the disparity in strength between us and the enemy still made him feel an expectation. I wish I had Astat, who has a semi-divine body. But that's all for daydreaming. Because Fenrir lost interest in continuing to play with his prey, and considering that there were indeed many pedestrians and tourists on George Square, he did need to make a quick decision. The werewolf's throat and eyes emitted a deep gasp, like a bellows constantly pumping air, his 10 fingers all grew sharp nails, scratching the ground. Fenrir opened his arms and pounced fiercely. However, he was not prepared to bite directly. Because he feared that it would kill the child in front of him, so he wanted to catch the little wizard first and then take a quick bite. However, Bern still did not appreciate this kind offer. Faced with the werewolf Fenrir flying towards him, Bern made 3 moves between the lightning stones. Firstly, he quickly bent down and dodged to the side, taking advantage of his short stature to avoid the enemy's grasp. Then, he immediately picked up the second-hand chainsaw he had bought from the £1 shop and lifted it horizontally. Finally and most importantly, after shouting, "Praise the Omic Messiah," Bern pulled the drawstring. Even last-minute cramming is better than doing nothing. Although there is no condition to light incense or recite a binary prayer, a correct declaration still serves to soothe the soul. With a dull buzzing sound, the remaining ignited oil in the fuel tank turned into power, supporting the piston movement of the stroke engine, and the saw chain speed instantly soared. Fenrir did not bite Bern, and the continuously rotating serrations first bit into the relatively weak fur-covered lower abdomen of the werewolf from the side. His owl a second-hand chainsaw cut a shaped wound on the werewolf's lower abdomen, with sharp teeth grinding his fur and flesh into small pieces, causing the murky wolf blood to burst everywhere. The intense and unexpected pain made Fenrir involuntarily let out a mournful scream. His eyes turned even redder, his pupils narrowed to the size of a needle, and his canine teeth instantly bulged several inches. Damn little bastard! Fenrir cursed, ignoring the wound being torn and widened, and suddenly swung his arm to smash at Bern. As a dangerous magical animal at the 5x level, werewolves have strong recovery abilities and can withstand many physical injuries that are quite fatal to humans with this ability. Even though he almost had his stomach cut open, Fenrir did not retreat, but instead launched a fierce counterattack. This caught Bern off guard. Another thing is that using a monster standing up over 2 meters tall with sharp teeth and claws as an opponent can be quite challenging for a child. Even with over 300 years of combat experience bonuses, Bern still has little chance of winning. Oh no! Bern muttered to himself. Although he had followed the habit of using a chainsaw sword to block, he was still hit by Fenrir's resentful blow and flew several meters away, solidly hitting the iron trash can in the alley. And the loyal second-hand chainsaw was also torn apart by the werewolf's claws, causing deformation in the saw chain, guide rod, and main structure. Cough and cough. Bern coughed up blood stasis in his chest and felt as if several of his ribs had broken due to the recent collision. However, even so, he still stubbornly climbed up from the ground. For 300 years of wandering and fighting in the dark universe as Astat, Bern had to stand up and fight until the very last moment, even if he knew he might die in battle. Giving up resistance is equivalent to giving up hope, that is the most tragic outcome. At this moment, Fenrir had already rushed up to him and reached out a hand with sharp claws, grabbing Bern off the ground. "Kid. You successfully angered me. I changed my mind. I won't transform you into a great werewolf anymore, I'll tear you apart and swallow you little by little into my stomach." Faced with the threat of werewolves, Bern, who had already entered battle mode, had no expression on his face. Similar threats, oh no, 100 times more brutal than this, estates have heard so much. Just, hee Fenrir. The alien appearance, the heretical speech, I stacked 2 layers of buffs. What do you think? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Half-Blood Giant Astat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Half-Blood Giant, X, Astat, square root, many heretics, aliens, and even some mortals have had the misconception that Astat can only become the sword of the Empire with its strong physique, power armor, and powerful advanced weapons. In fact, the necessary reason for truly forging the glorious achievements of Astat is actually their firm will and faith, as well as their unshakable spirit of struggle against various emperors and human enemies. Come on. Face me. Damn the alien. Bern let out a roar, completely ignoring Fenrir's death threat. He felt an uncontrollable anger suddenly rising in his chest, which not only burned his spirit, but even seemed to spread to his body. See the ghost. Fenrir widened his eyes. He witnessed an unforgettable scene. The little boy who had just been picked up and lifted off the ground by him with one hand, instantly broke free from his arm and became a nearly 3-meter-high giant, as if he had been inflated. Fenrir quickly searched through his limited magical knowledge in his mind and said, "What is this little ghost? Has the Laghorn family produced a mixed-race giant? But wasn't he just a normal child before?" Bern, immersed in a certain emotion, seemed unaware of the changes that had occurred within him. After all, the identity of the little wizard had only been experienced for a few years, and the transformed body had already adapted to it for over 300 years. Therefore, taking advantage of Fenrir's inability to turn his mind, Bern, who had already transformed into Astat, without hesitation punched him in the head and then pounced on him, using his own weight to fiercely suppress the werewolf. Bern's hands pressed down on Fenrir's neck, making the werewolf completely immobile. His furry head was tightly pressed to the ground, making it difficult to even open his mouth. As a magical creature with a threat level of up to 5x, werewolves are extremely deadly to the vast majority of wizards. Of course, werewolves are not invincible. Whether using powerful transformation spells or powerful black magic, wizards can successfully kill werewolves. However, after today, it is estimated that there will be more space in a future version of the Practical Manual of Defense Against the Dark Arts to introduce how to strangle a werewolf with both hands. Bern's 2 palms were already intertwined and gripping the back of Fenrir Greybeck's neck, with steel-like fingers deeply embedded in the werewolf's muscles. As he turned his wrist, he kept making a thump 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 thump. Like twisting a towel, Bern gradually reshaped the werewolf's spine. However, even if the spine was twisted into fried dough twists, Final Greyback still did not die quietly. Although suppressed to the point of being unable to move, he still struggled to open his mouth and bite around, wanting to give Bern a hard blow. However, its dying resistance also stirred up some memories for Bern. Just like those warrior bugs of the Tyrannosaurus Zerg, even if destined to be killed, they often try their best to drag a brave Astat along to death. The unrepentant alien. Bern looked coldly at the struggling werewolf, his anger once again elevated to new heights, and his strength in his hands increased several times. Ga. Bern no longer wanted to twist Fenrir's neck, as it would be too cheap for this alien. The biceps on his arms slowly bulged, pulling the werewolf's head out of his chest like a carrot. The intense pain left Fenrir in agony. It wanted to howl, but because Bern had already broken its vocal cords and trachea, it could only make an unknown sound of hiccup hiccup. 1, 2, 3. This terrifying, carrot-pulling competition came to an end in the 4th second, and Fenrir's head was finally unable to twist Bern's arm, which was thicker than an average thigh, and was forcefully pulled out of his body. Bern stood up, as if grabbing a basketball with one hand, grabbing a werewolf's head with wide eyes and a slightly yellowish spine covered in grease. Due to being infused with black magic, the blood of werewolves is darker than that of normal creatures. They flow out of Fenrir's body in large streams, forming a large pool of oil-like stains on the ground of the alley. Bern frowned. He only then realized that this place was a small alley behind George Square. Just killed Fenrir, although it didn't take much time and didn't cause much commotion, there is still a possibility of being hurt if you can't be prepared. If someone passes by here now, the blood stains on the ground and the bones of the werewolf are likely to cause some unnecessary trouble. Just as Bern was about to leave before anyone noticed him, a slight explosion of anger suddenly appeared next to the metal trash can not far from him. Bern turned his head and looked over there. I saw a domestic elf holding a flat pot hiding behind the tin trash can, peeking towards this side. When she saw the blood stains and wolf corpses, she was momentarily stunned, and then involuntarily let out a scream. Ah. Bern quickly spoke up to stop her and said, Momo. Uncle, Master Born. Upon hearing the familiar title, the domestic elf Momo stared at the giant who greeted her with confusion. Because there are compound decoctions and other things in the wizarding world, some families that have been passed down for a long time will specifically train their household elves to rely on the fingerprints of wizards. A unique magical aura that every wizard possesses. Rather than their appearance to identify who the true owner is. Although Bern's voice also underwent some changes with his body image, Momo accurately recognized the familiar magical aura. Master Born, how did you become like this? And what's going on with that werewolf? Momo shot out a barrage of questions, her voice much sharper than usual, and she even leaned on a frying pan as a crutch when speaking, as if not doing so would make her faint at any time. It's a long story, can you? Bern was just about to say something, but Momo suddenly raised her arm and released a spell without reciting it. Next to a garbage bag facing the alley wall, the evil spirit who had just woken up and immediately recognized the situation and wanted to sneak away was instantly hit, staring wide-eyed and falling straight to the ground. Master Bern, Mo looked at Bern seriously, it's not the time to speak. I'll go and notify the old master to come back immediately. Please wait here and don't move. After speaking, the domestic elf once again transformed into a phantom and disappeared without a trace in front of Bern. Bern. What he just wanted to say was to ask Momo to hurry home and pick up a piece of clothing or a sheet for him. Because as he transformed into Astat, his Baker Street Squad suit had already been torn into dozens of pieces of torn cloth. Of course, even if the clothes were still intact, he couldn't put them on with his current physique and outfit. So, 1 minute later, when Horace's speed of light moved from the illusion of the extraordinary pharmacist's annual meeting to this alley, he saw a huge figure squatting in the corner, bewildered, with some blood stains on his body. Just like Momo's expression before, Horace almost fainted from the scene in front of him. After taking a deep breath, he asked, Bern, where did you get hurt? Tell Grandpa. I'm not injured, Born shook his head and said. He is telling the truth. The wounds caused by Fenrir have already healed quickly due to the body's astatization. So now all the blood on Bern's body is werewolf blood, not a single bit of it belongs to him. Of course, there is a situation called, your mother thinks you are cold. On the issue of whether he was injured or not, Bern himself doesn't have a say, only professional therapists can have a say. Dear readers, I thought for a long time while writing this paragraph, but I still had the audacity to write it down. As a writer who has been fighting the streets for many years, after a long period of serious study and careful reflection, I have decided to follow the market rules and write a novel that can be read with acceptable results. After all, for those who are already in their 30s, the conflict between family pressure and personal ideals has become increasingly acute. I dare not expect any alliance leaders or rewards, but I hope that readers here can use your little hands to make a fortune, even by clicking on automatic reading and scrolling to the latest published chapters. Please help me improve my reading. This data is quite crucial, whether to give recommendations or not in the future depends on it. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The Born Magus. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The Born Magus. To make a long story short, Albus, what do you think about the physical condition of my little Bern? Horace Slughorn asked seriously. Although the person he asked was Albus Dumbledore, his gaze remained fixed on Bern. After rushing to the St. Mungo Magical Hospital with Bern, Horace sent Momo to Hogwarts and invited Albus Dumbledore over. The therapist of St. Mungo, the greatest white wizard, and his potion master. Triple insurance, triple protection. Dumbledore circled around Bern, carefully observing the little boy who had transformed into the current key-keeper of Hogwarts Castle, and then pushed his half-moon-shaped glasses. Don't be impatient, my old friend. It's obvious that little Bern hasn't been infected with wolf venom. Although he has been stained with final greyback's blood, we all know that wolf venom cannot penetrate intact skin to infect victims. And in terms of magic potions, as a master of magic potions, you have more say than I do, and you must have already ruled out this worst possibility. The therapist also said that you gave Bern a teaspoon of wolf poison potion, and he did not have any stress response to the potion. Horace Slughorn took out his handkerchief, wiped his eyes, and nodded. That's right, I can't even imagine if little Bern would be bitten by that villainous werewolf, and my old bones would still be able to hold on. But although it's not the worst situation now, I can't completely trust his physical condition. He is the only future heir of the Slughorn family. Do you think his appearance change is due to some kind of dark magic? The first sentence was spoken normally by Horace, while the second sentence was a communication with Dumbledore using his mind. Silent communication is as easy as eating and drinking water for these two mind-capturing masters. Dumbledore shook his head and replied to his old friend with the same thought, don't worry, it's not dark magic. Severus also agrees with my point of view. You know, Severus has a lot of in-depth research in this area. The solution given by that kid Kesnep is actually to make little Bern drink the slimming potion continuously for a period of time. Listen, is this human language? I remember when I gave them a class, but the focus was on what the professional ethics of a potion master are, and it was obvious that Severus didn't listen carefully during that class. That's all, he's much worse than Lily. Dumbledore smiled and did not comment further on it. In fact, I don't agree with his opinion either. He reached out his hand and pounded the strong muscles on Bern's thigh. Little Bern almost instinctively had a knee-jerk reflex, but fortunately he didn't do that. You know, my greatest skill in magic is actually shape-shifting. From the perspective of shape-shifting, there may be another explanation for little Bern's changes. This immediately awakened Horace. Although he is renowned as a master of potions, this does not mean that Horace's knowledge in other fields of magic is shallow. Are you saying Magus? Dumbledore nodded. There are currently two known forms of Magus, namely Ani, animal, Magus and Irome Magus. However, Makush, magical creature, Magus only exists in theory, and any wizard in history who recklessly attempted this kind of Magus transformation has, without exception, caused serious accidents. Seeing Horace's nervous expression on his face, Dumbledore quickly comforted him, "Don't worry, I don't think Born is Muchermags, but rather a naturally disfigured Magus, with a slightly special form. He changed his entire body, not his face. The new wizard to Hogwarts this year is the naturally easy-looking Magus, and Maliva likes her as if she were her own daughter. She can not only transform her face into anyone's face, but also into a cat's head or a duck's head. So what do you mean is that according to Magus transformation method, Bern could possibly come back? My intuition tells me, it's like this. Magic is a kind of idealistic power. When casting magic or brewing potions, wise wizards can rely solely on intuition to know in advance whether they can succeed. The stronger the wizard, the more accurate their intuition becomes. A powerful wizard like Dumbledore, whose intuition is essentially equivalent to factual results, has extremely high credibility. So, upon hearing Dumbledore's words, Hallerstone felt relieved. "Mo, go and get the preserved pineapple." "No, take the candy box of the Honey Duke. Little Born needs it now." Upon hearing this, Bern, lying on a specially reinforced hospital bed, couldn't help but feel speechless. He retorted, "Grandpa Horace, I'm not a child." However, a few minutes later, while drinking ZZ honey fruit dew that could help him float a little more than 10 centimeters off the hospital bed and eating chocolate balls filled with dried strawberries, little Born felt that being a child was also good. At the very least, after falling ill, one can eat delicious candies. Amino cereal congee mixed with ceramic steel powder, clean and sanitary canned and cattle, mucus-like nutritional cream. Dogs don't even eat those things. Just as Bern was enjoying his meal, a mood called happiness slowly grew in his heart. When it reached a certain concentration, accompanied by a soft bang, Bern returned to his original child. Oh. Speaking late, then fast. Bern immediately spat out a candy called Pepper Naughty Boy that had just been stuffed into his mouth. Astat can be used as a snack to chew on something, but it's not something that a normal child should eat. Unfortunately, he was still half slow. 2 streams of steam had already sprayed out of his ears, and he opened his mouth wide, sticking out his tongue and gasping for breath. A few sparks even burst out of his mouth. Spicy, 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 spicy. The cow drank a large cup of sweet fruit dew, and it was only then that Bern could suppress the urge to spit fire out of his mouth. Standing next to the hospital bed, Horace and Dumbledore, 2 elderly men over 200 years old combined, burst into hearty laughter when they saw Bern's reaction. "Little Born, you should try pineapple candied fruit." Horace took the opportunity to confuse. "Horace, children should be exposed to more new things." Dumbledore shook his head and took out a glass jar from his candy gift pack. "I strongly recommend trying Duke Honey's cockroach pile. Don't be fooled by its appearance, these candies have peanut butter filling and taste like delicious nougat." After speaking, Dumbledore blinked at Bern. In Horace's frightened gaze, Bern actually reached out and took out a piece of cockroach-shaped candy from the glass jar. Its legs made of shredded sugar were still swinging. Bern threw a pile of cockroaches into his mouth, his upper and lower jaws suddenly closed, and this sandwich candy burst between his teeth. It is indeed a peanut butter flavor. Bern's eyes lit up for a moment, then he reached out and grabbed a pile of cockroaches, starting to whine. Eating instructions. Recently, some readers have reported that the protagonist doesn't look like a veteran with 3 service nails. I think this way. Firstly, he has just crossed over, and the child's body will definitely have some impact on their behavior. Secondly, I always feel that from the very beginning, Astart's behavior, in terms of his level of danger, as far as I know, I am afraid that I will soon destroy the world of Harry Potter, and then I will have to patch and add dungeons. If I don't lay the groundwork earlier, doing so will easily lead to writing crashes, so wouldn't it become a big fight? Thirdly, I will give you a rationalized reason later. Astat Magus definitely behaves like Astat, while the form of the little wizard takes into account fun. I didn't write those 300 years blindly, it's a bit presumptuous, but let's not spoil it for now. Finally, in the era of new books, reading data is the fate of us young authors, and we rely on everyone's support. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Preschool Education in the Magic World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Preschool Education in the Magic World. After being discharged from San Mango, Bern became increasingly busy. His grandfather Horace, the older generation's Snake King, wanted to lay a solid foundation for him to dominate Slytherin before he entered school. Happy education is not advisable. Whether it is the elite class in Muggle or the pure-blooded family in Wizards, parents will not believe the lie of happy education. Common potion material identification, basic magic theory, origin of spells, history of magic. And even, considering Bern's special Magus transformation, Horace used the skills of a potion master to specially compile a knowledge about magical food nutrition for his nephew and grandson. Foods such as pork ribs, tartar pork meatballs, and milk from Reem have almost become a regular addition to Born's daily meals. Time passes day by day, and seeing the daily changes of his own child, Horace always feels immensely gratified. Undoubtedly a seed of the Slughorn family. Of course, no one is perfect, and Bern also has a small flaw that often makes this old Snake King feel uneasy. Aha! Bern, be startled. Early that morning, Horace pushed open the door to Bern's room and smiled as he looked at his little nephew who was hiding the wrench behind him. Listen, little ghost, I know you're still playing with those things. I'm not, I absolutely can't. Bern smiled obediently and sincerely. He knew that Horace was going to the Ministry of Magic today to attend an important meeting. Grandpa Horace, don't worry, I will obediently listen to Momo's words and wait for you to come back honestly. Banging. A robotic arm fell off the table behind Bern, and a small chainsaw blade on top inserted into the floor, causing the arm to stick straight into it. Horace's eyelids trembled. If you don't keep glancing at that thing from the corner of your eye, your words may be more convincing. Several years have passed since the werewolf attack, and the young master of the Slughorn family has finally grown up to become a wizard who is about to enter school. The incident of tearing the werewolf by hand did not have any impact on his life. At least, without insiders spreading the truth. Both werewolf Fenrir and the evil spirit were turned into ashes by a pot of potion. The Ministry of Magic did not send anyone to investigate this matter in the end. In fact, after being able to freely switch between the Astat form and his own body, Bern was only forcibly taken by Horace to the St. Munger Magic Hospital for a few examinations and received some professional psychological counseling treatment. Every time I go to the hospital, Bern feels like it's a double waste of time and time. After 300 years of fighting in the dark universe, can one still suffer from psychological disorders such as PTSD? Just kidding, these diseases are not loyal enough by their names. The main reason why Bern is able to endure treatment is because Horace, a decades-old professor, really has a set of tricks in dealing with children. He knew that to make the children obediently go to the hospital, toys and candies had to be used as bait. However, other little wizards are pestering their adults to take them to the Joker's shop and the Honey Duke, but Bern will beg Horace to take him to Muggle places such as hardware stores, machining factories, and black market gun shops. It seems like something strange has infiltrated, but it's not important. For over 2 years, besides receiving Horace's daily, preschool education, Bern's favorite thing to do was tinker with the toys he bought from Muggles, and he would make some noise and occasionally shatter some furniture if it weren't for the household elves being proficient in using household magic such as cleaning up and someone else taking care of a mischievous bear like Bern. They would have to find a rope to hang themselves. Horace couldn't understand Bern's interest. Is it dangerous for children to play with these things? Let's put it aside. Bern, you are at least Slaghorn. Crucibles, cauldrons, and various magical potion materials that outsiders cannot buy. Isn't that what you should play with at your age? The hands-on hobby you showed is so similar to what the Weasley family would do. Therefore, Horace even checked the family tree. But, without checking, I didn't know. I was startled to find out that the Slughorn family and the Weasley ancestors were really related. So, Horace experienced the pain of being robbed in the future that many young people have experienced. And he can't say anything yet. After all, the Weasley family is one of the Holy 28 families, even in its downfall, and their ancestral talents are also very good. So, Horace could only console himself. Take a step back from the vast sea and sky, endure the calm waves for a while. Fart, the more he thinks, the more angry he becomes. In line with the concept of saving children, a few years ago, Horace consciously launched a special campaign against Bern. Don't worry, finish this and class will be over. Do you know the 4 ways of writing aconite? They are all the same thing. Wolf venom aconite, boat-shaped aconite. There are 2 small tests today, don't worry, both are what you are interested in. One is a magic potion, and the other is also a magic potion. This kind of preschool magic education course that incorporates a large amount of private goods, regardless of its effectiveness, is definitely difficult for normal children to accept. But Bourne is different. He doesn't seem to be averse to learning these knowledge, even if the learning process takes up a lot of his time and energy. This made Horace both happy and worried. He is happy that strength is the most fundamental operating logic in the wizarding world. Every powerful wizard, like Bern, had an insatiable interest in knowledge when they were young. What worries him is that due to the long class hours, Bern can only devote the remaining time of the day to things he is interested in. Horace has noticed many times that little Bern, who should have been asleep, would secretly wake up at night and tinker with the Muggle toys he had bought home in his room. Originally, Horace planned to tidy up this bear child well, so that he could also experience the charm of the little ones led by Slytherin by the old Snake King back then. But when it came to reality, he immediately realized that he couldn't bear to be ruthless. After all, Bern is a cub of the Slughorn family, not the little snakes of other families. That's really. He's afraid of melting in his mouth, afraid of falling in his hand. So, the poor old man could only choose to trouble himself by regularly and meticulously preparing a batch of energy potions and tonics that were not even available outside, so that the domestic elves would add them to Bern's daily meals. Several years have passed, and under the care of Horace, Bern is growing rapidly every day. And the retired old man seemed to have opened his eyes, as if he had already seen the wonderful scene of his own child leading Slytherin to step on the eagle, lion, and badger 3 yards, and scolding Hogwarts after going to school. So much so that he recently decided to start teaching Bern another subject, teaching him how to control a pack of snakes. Don't answer so quickly, I know you've accumulated a lot of Muggle currency lately. Do you want to sneak out on Tabaugh while I'm at the meeting? Horace pouted, meaning that it's too young of you to try to deceive me. How could that be? I promised to stay with Momo. Bourne used his trump card and took it out of context. His intention is to go out with the household elf. Jiang is still old and spicy, and Horace immediately recognized the tricks in Bern's words. If you promised to stay with Momo, wouldn't it be the same if you fooled the house elf into going out with you? She can't stop you from doing anything when you're out. Besides, Momo doesn't usually spoil you the most, and she always provides you with various covers at home. Horace stiffened his face and said, "Listen, little Bern, I'll be out for 2 weeks this time." He is indeed a bit worried that this little nephew is at home. Although Bern is not yet 10 years old, this child not only awakened Magus, but also exhibited various troublemaking traits. If it weren't for this time when the Ministry of Magic and the U.S. Magic Congress were to draft a Common Standards for the Production of Multinational Trading Potions bill, and this new bill involved the core interests of the Slughorn family, whose industry is related to potions, Horace would not have actually wanted to step forward. After leaving for half a month, he felt uneasy about letting Bern stay at home on his own. Even though Momo takes her children very seriously and responsibly, unless Horace gives her authorization to use tough means, she actually cannot restrain Bern. So, Horace came up with an idea. During this period, I registered you for a summer camp. You should be obedient and obedient. Is it normal for children to attend extracurricular interest classes during winter and summer vacations? And, let me tell you, if you perform well enough, Grandpa Horace, I will provide you with the highest level of education in the wizarding world for the next 7 years. Hogwarts has a 7-year education system with no tuition fees. What else can Bern do when facing a parent who has already enrolled you in an interest class and is also an education expert who is knowledgeable in child psychology? He could only obediently dress appropriately, bring his own small suitcase, and follow Horace and Momo towards the fireplace at home. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. A Spicy Man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. A Spicy Man, Surrey County, Hermit Manor. Led by Horace, Bern walked out of the estate fireplace, while Momo disappeared without a trace. A household elf who understands etiquette will try to reduce their presence as much as possible, Horace explained straightforwardly, knowing that his nephew has a habit of breaking the sand pot and asking the bottom. You can call her when you need her, and Momo can hear her. It's a bit unnecessary, there's no need to be so troublesome at home, said Bern, who didn't like this kind of hypocritical social activity. You have to get used to socializing, this is a new course. Just as Horace was solving Bern's doubts, his social behavior immediately approached the two of them. A man with platinum hair, cold gray-blue eyes, and a slightly pale face strode in from outside the reception hall. He was holding a cane with a snake-shaped decoration in his hand, walking fast, and the hem of his black robe seemed to be about to float. Dean Slughorn, the man walked up to Lord Horace and greeted him with a smile on his face. "Hello, Lucius," Horace responded with a smile to his former student. "Where's Naxisha? She didn't come with you to deliver the child." "No, Dean. Narcissa is also here, she's just accompanying our son Draco, who's playing indoor Quidditch with his buddies on a children's broom." Then Lucius Malfoy's gaze shifted to Bern. "Dean, this is your little nephew, right? What's the name of this little gentleman?" Bern, without asking Horace to answer on his behalf, Bern reported his name. "My name is Bern Slughorn." "Another excellent Mr. Slughorn, you look a bit older than Draco. When Draco goes to school, you must take care of my little dragon." Lucius blinked at Bern. "Just like your grandfather, our favorite Slughorn Dean, he was taking care of us back then, taking care of every Slytherin." Horace laughed heartily, seemingly satisfied with Lucius Malfoy's words and feeling very pleased. However, the duration of this conversation was not long. After all, the true participants in this summer camp are the young wizards of the pure blood family, not their parents. Horace and Malfoy only chatted for a while before leaving the Hermit Manor like other parents. Bern's suitcase had already been taken to the dormitory by Momo, so he could only wander around the Hermit estate with the limited edition snack of the Slughorn family. Ream beef jerky. "Hello, my name is Draco Malfoy." A voice sounded beside him. A little boy, even without introducing himself, could tell from his inherited appearance that he was a Malfoy. Surrounded by two round young boys, he walked up to Bern. "My father is Lucius Malfoy. He is one of the sponsors of this summer camp, and he is also the director of Hogwarts," Draco boasted, with a focus on being familiar. "My dad just told me that you are the grandson of their dean, and we can become friends. Don't worry, with me around, your evaluation in the summer camp graduation exam will definitely not be lower than A." As he spoke, he also extended his hand to Bern. Bern shook hands with him. Having watched Harry Potter, he doesn't have a special aversion to this little boy who often gives speeches on the theme of "my father," as some people do. However, he ultimately declined Draco's invitation to ride a children's flying broomstick and play indoor Quidditch together. The kind of children playing games seemed extremely boring to him. Riding a flying broomstick, and it's also a children's version, obviously not attractive to him who has raced a flying motorcycle with White Scar. "After the game or something, I want to ask you a question." Bern asked Draco, "Did your dad tell you who the teachers at this summer camp are? Do you know the one standing behind you now?" "Ah." Draco and his two little followers turned around together. "I saw a ghost floating behind them, wearing a round top hat, a grey tweed English suit, a legion-striped tie around their neck with a jewel-studded tie-clip, and a suspected beetle nut civilization staff under their arm." "Ah." The three little ghosts immediately moved together again, emitting piercing screams. The children who were sent by their parents to participate in the summer camp were instantly attracted to their attention and collectively looked towards this side. Among them, although a few also transformed into an atmosphere group under the stimulation of the Draco trio, more remained calm. In the wizarding world, ghosts are not extremely rare spirits. Several older pure-blood wizards from the family who are about to enroll this year and are said to have participated in a summer camp event have all given the ghost a decent wizard salute. "Dr. Watson," they greeted the ghost. In response, the ghost also smiled and responded to the little wizards who greeted him before introducing themselves to the other little wizards present. "Hello everyone." Bern only then found out that Dr. Watson's name was John and his full name was John Watson. He is a close friend of the organizers of this summer camp and also a mentor for the little wizards during the summer camp. The reason why he also worked for his old friend after his death was to find some fun for his ghostly life, which had yet to see its end. "I don't know if I was fooled, or if I'm really a happy person," Bern pondered inwardly. "Dear wizards, your summer camp is about to begin. In the next 2 weeks, you will learn some knowledge about grammar and writing under the guidance of my good friend and summer camp organizer, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. These knowledge will be of great help to you in your future studies at Hogwarts. By mastering them, you will be able to complete the several-inch-long homework assigned by future subject teachers faster and better. Mom." Surprisingly, it's a spicy man. Although Bern had some speculations when the ghost teacher introduced his name as John Watson, he was still pleasantly surprised when he revealed the man's name himself. He didn't even pay much attention to Dr. Watson's course on grammar and writing. "Just kidding, Sherlock Holmes has already come out to give a lecture. Who would a serious person care about what he is talking about? Even if it's a story. Preferably a story. Bern thinks he's definitely making a lot of money by participating in this summer camp." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Watson, what do you think? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Watson, what do you think? Hermit Manor, Master Bedroom. A terrifying long table, which seemed to have undergone countless terrifying chemical experiments, was placed in the middle of the room, speckled with acid corrosion. The desktop is filled with various instruments, some of which contain terrifying substances that have not yet been fully utilized. They are mainly organic liquids, leaving indelible marks on those instruments. Persian slippers filled with tobacco were placed on the fireplace rack in the room, with pipes on each side. Made of clay and cherry wood. Overlooking a cigar box placed between them to maintain humidity at both ends of the fireplace rack. Encyclopedia, dictionary, place name dictionary, and other reference books with label strips on the spine of the book are neatly arranged in rows on a bookshelf near the wall with half a glass door missing. A Stradivari violin, which has been cast a spell, is in good condition and placed on a table by the front window. The sheet music rack is pressed with scattered pages of Mendelssohn's selected lyrical songs, playing the music on its own. The furniture in this room may seem a bit old-fashioned, but it is very comfortable. The carpet in front of the fireplace is made of bear skin, and there is also a tall wine cabinet filled with glass bottles and oak barrels. From alcoholic beverages with various strange names in the wizarding world to various famous wines loved by muggles, everything is complete. "Watson, what do you think?" The person in a portrait asked Dr. Watson, who was floating beside the portrait. The person in this painting is only 26 years old, with smooth and hydrated skin and a square and firm outline of the chin. The only issue with this person's appearance is the towering hairline that often troubles British men. In addition, although he still has an unpleasant hooked nose and a broad forehead, coupled with those grey eyes that sparkle with cold wisdom, every move on his face exudes confidence. The 27,776th time I asked. "Watson, what do you think?" "Sherlock, it seems like you have developed some kind of bad habit again." Dr. Watson frowned and pointed at the person in the painting's question in an unfriendly tone, his expression resembling that of an old subway man's phone face. "Also, don't you have any points in your mind?" "How can I see?" "I can only see with my eyes. The double-dot-sided mirror is hidden in your portrait, not in this room, and I can't use it." Sherlock was taken aback for a moment, shrugged his shoulders in the portrait, and then burst into laughter, saying, "There's nothing we can do about it. Watson, I'm just a portrait. Besides the memories from my lifetime, I can't always remember the new memories that arise after death so clearly. I can only rely on magical painters to add them to the portrait every year when they do maintenance." Dr. Watson felt helpless about this. If it weren't for this old friend having to hire a magical painter every year for the extremely expensive maintenance and upkeep, how could a ghost who doesn't need to eat or drink still have to work and earn money after death? Originally, he and his friend in the painting had completely different lives. Sherlock Holmes, a famous consulting detective and widely known protagonist, is actually a wizard from a pure-blooded family. John Watson is Shylock's assistant, well-known supporting role, and a muggle who can't use any magic. However, after encountering Sherlock, the latter not only revealed to him the thrilling detective routine, but also led him into a more colorful magical world. Even with his own consent, after his death, Sherlock found a way to turn him into a ghost. After his death, Sherlock left behind a magical portrait. So the two of them, a portrait and a ghost, continued their friendship in a special form during their lifetime. However, there is still a difference between ghost and magical portraits. Magical portraits retain all the memories of characters during their lifetime, while events after death are occasionally forgotten. Ghosts, on the other hand, are the opposite of the former. Dr. Watson can remember everything that happened after death, but things before his death will slowly be forgotten by him. The day he forgets everything is the day he embarks on a true adventure of death. Shylock, who preserved his keen insight during his lifetime, seemed to have sensed the mindset of his old friend and quickly spoke out to comfort him. "My old friend, be happy. At the very least, your and my stories have been completely recorded by you, and you can always recall them through reading. Not to mention, the cigars on the fireplace, top-notch tobacco, and even the cute bottles in the wine cabinet can be ignited and you can taste their taste, while I can only watch them quench my thirst." "Humph, you always remember cigars, tobacco, and alcohol very clearly," Dr. Watson sneered with a satisfied smile on his face. "But you're absolutely right. With that, you're still a bit more miserable." "That's not it, it's so miserable." Then, Sherlock in the portrait let out a nervous burst of laughter. His friend didn't know that the annual fee he paid to the magical painter was not just for maintaining the status of the portrait. He also allowed those guys to secretly add many good things in the corners of the portrait layer. Cigarettes, fine wine, and delicious food, but he didn't lack any of them. Of course, this is his little secret. After chatting for a while, Sherlock immediately got back to the main topic. "Let me tell you, the little wizard at this summer camp this year is definitely the worst one I've ever led." "Why, don't you look at me like that? You still don't believe my judgment." "If it were me alive, perhaps I would still be deceived by your clichés." Dr. Watson pursed his lips and choked back, "But I already know that you didn't rely solely on deductive methods to solve the case, and magic also helped a lot. You can't continue to fool ghosts. Do you still want to hear my judgment?" Even if the truth was exposed, Sherlock was not angry, but continued to ask with a smile. In terms of skin thickness, Sherlock has never lost. Before his death, he relied on his innate talent, but after his death, he relied on a magical canvas. The thickness of oil stacked year after year had already exceeded 2 inches. Because he was aroused by his interest, Dr. Watson eventually obediently listened to Sherlock's vivid descriptions. Honest people are always easily manipulated by bad friends. They are all busy playing around, venting their excess energy without realizing the problems they are currently facing. Sherlock in the portrait added, apart from a little wizard who seems to have a little bit of agility, he discovered anomalies in his environment. Isn't it true that children are all like this? They are easily addicted to games and happy things. This situation is similar to the little wizards who used to attend summer camps. You may have forgotten, but I still remember. Watson didn't seem to be interested in this answer. No, no, no. In the portrait, Sherlock jumps up to a small waltz, and as he spins, he also grows a bit larger, as if he has moved from a distance to a closer place. After regaining his composure, he reached out his palm and shook his index finger. Wizards are different from muggles. Wizards are actually intuitive creatures. Any wizard with potential actually has superhuman intuition. Don't have any prejudice against it, explain it with muggle science. Intuition is a manifestation of the human brain's judgment that exceeds the speed limit of thinking comprehension. In fact, many wise characters in muggles even possess powerful intuition far beyond that of ordinary wizards. I believe that the first lesson that every little wizard needs to learn is to discover the flash of spiritual light in their mind, and learn to believe it, chase it, and even completely let their intuition form a self-instinct. You left the hall, leaving only them to stay there. If a child has strong intuition, they will always notice a slight abnormality over such a long period of time. Intuition will make them look for a way out instead of continuing to wait in place. You're right, Dr. Watson thought for a moment, unable to refute his old friend's theory. This theory is supported by factual evidence, and without experimental data, it is generally difficult to falsify it. And so on. He suddenly had a flash of inspiration and discovered a blind spot that he had not been aware of before. Sir Holmes. Dr. Watson's tone suddenly became serious, and he rarely used this title to refer to his old friend. You wouldn't have secretly set up a control group, and then used the little wizard from this summer camp as a mouse for the experiment, right? Hee, John, you understand me. I understand you, big-headed ghost. Upon hearing Sherlock's personal confession, even though he had become a ghost, Dr. Watson still broke out in a cold sweat. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Child of Mind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Child of Mind. Merlin's stainless steel dentures. Dr. Watson is a righteous person. Although he enjoys taking risks, he doesn't like to gamble on his reputation. Moreover, conducting experiments with young wizards from the pure-blood family, oh my God, if this matter were to be spread, their summer camp, which has been running for dozens of consecutive sessions, would probably end this year. He and Sherlock, the next stop in the lives of two special life forms, are likely to be Azkaban. You crazy person. Watson poked his beetle-nut wooden cane at the oil painting in front of him, and seeing his gritted teeth, he was definitely sincere in wanting to enlighten his old friend. Unfortunately, ghosts have no physical entity. So his cane pierced through the canvas, but it remained intact without any holes being pulled out. Sherlock awkwardly chuckled twice. Don't be angry, Watson. There's no experimental group or control group, I just prepared some extra parameters for those kids. Oh, no, it's just some small games. The ongoing argument between a ghost and an oil painting cannot be heard by Bourne on the other side of the estate. At this moment, he is focused on searching for clues in this room. Because intuition tells him that some people seem to be working behind his back. Although Bern's tested and exceptionally sharp combat intuition did not issue a warning of danger, he still habitually wanted to take the initiative. Just mentioning the course content, without even distributing the course schedule, Dr. Watson left the room, leaving only the little wizards to play in the room, which was not right. He pondered while carefully examining the surrounding environment according to Astat's investigative methods. Sherlock Holmes. Bern is very familiar with this name. Even more so, compared to the senior students who have already participated in a summer camp, he actually understands the meaning represented by this name better. And if the host of the summer camp is really this genius, he thinks the other party will definitely not consider grammar and writing as the main course, which is mostly just a gimmick. Who doesn't know that Sherlock Holmes is really good at deductive method? Horace's grandfather also said that the content of summer camp courses is related to socializing. Grammar and writing have a chicken-like relationship with socializing. Moreover, children from pure-blood families cannot become journalists for the Prophet's Daily in the future. So, after ruling out all impossible explanations, the rest, no matter how incredible, is also the truth. Mr. Sherlock should have designed a test that requires us little wizards to collaborate with each other in order to successfully cope. Starting from his profession as a detective, it can be inferred that this test can only be triggered by a sudden occurrence of a case. Sure enough, I am a scheming child. Gaga gaga. Bern suddenly felt that this summer camp seemed to be becoming more interesting. To be honest, he didn't originally want to come. And now, after doing some reasoning in front of the air, he even pretended to push his non-existent glasses and touched his stomach, almost saying, "There is only one truth," and then asking a domestic elf to take a photo and record it for himself. Just like demons come from subspace, demons are hidden in details. Bern smiled with a confident smile on his lips. He was quite familiar with this theory, so he began to carefully search for various details in the hall. Imperceptible filaments, fishing lines, not available, ice cubes or other disappearing objects, not available, candy or other snacks, except for the ream beef jerky in his hand, there are no other snacks, knives or other tools for committing crimes, I haven't seen anything similar to them at all, suspects with eerie behavior, except for Bern, other pure-blood wizards are all joking around, normal, just as Bern was persistently engaging in a battle of wits and courage with the air. The tapestry on the west wall of the hall suddenly rose slowly upwards under the pull of a rope, revealing a huge oil painting. Why is it called huge? Because the canvas of this painting almost occupies the entire wall and has no connection to details at all. Bern just glanced at it and ignored it. The clown is actually me. Bern looked around with a slight sense of guilt, only to find that the other little wizards had not noticed him, so he calmly walked towards the oil painting, learning from others. The content of the picture depicts a bar. Its appearance is somewhat similar to the broken cauldron bar that Horace once took Bern to. It's hard not to make Bern doubt whether the decoration of the Wizarding World bar was all done by the same person or company. They all walk in that kind of shabby retro style, but the difference is that the bar in the portrait is even more shabby than the broken kettle bar. In the bottom right corner of the oil painting, there is a small wooden board hanging on a small grey protruding wall brick, with the name of the bar engraved on it. Blind Pig Tavern. The screen is crowded with men and women dressed in strange clothes, but they don't look like any decent people. Some people gather in the bar lobby to play dice, dominoes, or other types of card games. In the inner room in the upper right corner of the screen, several people gather together to bet on cockfighting. There is a staircase in the lower left corner leading to the basement, where naked boxing is being performed occasionally. From this magical portrait, a few songs and tunes can be heard, but all of them are the most vulgar. This strange portrait immediately caught the attention of all the little wizards, and almost everyone was attracted to stop and observe. Magic oil paintings, I also have many at home. Draco Malfoy stood in front of a group of little wizards, proudly pointing at this oil painting. My largest painting at home is twice as big as this one. It depicts an adult Norwegian spiny-backed dragon, which not only spits fire but also frightens everyone passing by with its roar. What's that? I also have a portrait at home. It's just hidden from me usually. But one time, I secretly saw it, and it was a portrait of my stepfather asking someone to draw an equal figure for my mother and him. The characters in the picture even take off their clothes on their own. A child named Bryce seemed to be very indifferent to the stinky Malfoy and immediately choked out, unwilling to be outdone. His response sparked Draco's death gaze, and both of Draco's henchmen. Crab and Gore also gestured at him with fleshy fists. However, Bressa's intervention also aroused the desire of other little wizards to show off. They all opened their mouths and began to show off how many magical portraits they had at home, or how magical those portraits were. They are all wealthy people. After listening to the speeches of various young wizards at Versailles, Bern couldn't help feeling overwhelmed. Horace told him some knowledge about magical portraits. Because in order to draw a magical portrait, the artist needs to use special activating developer pigments. That thing is essentially a relatively niche magic potion that ordinary magic potion product stores do not sell, and the selling price on the market has always been high. Moreover, the canvas of magical portraits is not ordinary canvas. Although not considered high-end, that kind of canvas is actually an alchemy product, with several to dozens of magical animal hairs added in sequence to its warp and weft lines. Therefore, even if the manual costs and subsequent maintenance costs of the magical portrait craftsman are not included, and the cost of various raw materials is calculated alone, creating a 1 square foot magical portrait also requires 30 to 40 Garon bases. The production cost of such a large blind pig tavern portrait hanging on the wall is probably more expensive than some ordinary family wizards building a house. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Fairy Fire Crab Magic Awakening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Fairy Fire Crab Magic Awakening. Hey, you kids, keep your voice down. Just as the little wizards were chattering about who had the largest, most expensive, and most unique magical portrait, a shout of abuse suddenly came from within the portrait. Moreover, with this voice, all the characters in the Blind Pig Tavern portrait seemed to have been muted at the same time, all turning their heads in agreement to look at the group of little wizards. A shriveled and short guy walked in 4 directions, using his hands to separate the crowd in the portrait, and approached the little wizards. He was holding a cigar in his mouth, dragging his feet as he walked, with his jacket open and a patch of asphalt stains on his sleeves. He was wearing a lead gray vertical patterned shirt, coarse cotton overalls, and his boots had worn away the leather. This guy has a broad and dark face, a hooked nose, and a cigar in his mouth, revealing a row of crooked yellow teeth. Although his wrinkled hands were half curled up, the 10 fingers that were forcibly bent towards the back of his hands were hard to ignore. This is a fairy. However, this guy is very different from what the little wizards have seen, heard of, and his kind. He is not the well-dressed fairy in the Gringotts, but more like some kind of villain wandering in grey and even black areas. My name is Narek, said the fairy in the portrait as she approached and curled her fingers around her forehead, which was about missing after rounding it in half. She smiled at the little wizards with a seemingly friendly smile. It's the owner of this Blind Pig Tavern. These 2 sentences are considered normal. But then the fairy suddenly bit off the cigar with her teeth and spat out a sticky cigar handle, revealing a ferocious face. You despicable little brats. Haven't the adults at home taught you? Don't disturb others casually. Just because you are so noisy, I guessed 3 pharaoh cards wrong in a row, and I lost 20 fucking gallons in a row. According to the rules, you must compensate me twice for my loss. Otherwise, hee 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 hee. The ugly fairy grinned grimly, and all the ghosts, snakes, and gods in the portrait began to coax and conform to the tavern owner. Regardless of whether it's true or false, the fairy Narek does look a bit intimidating, and the phrase, hey hey hey, also has a feeling of being a big boss. At the very least, some little wizards were really scared by him. A little red-haired girl named Hannah Ebo with 2 braids of sheep horns even burst into tears. Why cry? The fairy in the portrait let out a roar once again, and as if by magic, an extra deck of playing cards appeared in her twisted palm. Not to mention that I haven't given you a chance. As long as you little devils guess the face of the pharaoh cards correctly, I will let you go. Of course, if I don't guess correctly, I will sell you to the overturned alley. There are many black wizards there who like little wizards. They love to drink with little wizards' hearts and liver the most. It's a famous dish that overturns the alley. These little wizards were all frightened by Neric's words, even Draco Malfoy, who had just been farting, was now like a frightened quail. He trembled as he shouted, "I want to tell my dad. Also, my family is rich." These pure-blooded wizards are still too young to be intimidated by the evil spirits depicted in the portrait. Even those who have participated in a summer camp were caught off guard by this sudden situation. At most, they are clamoring to find Dr. Watson and Professor Sherlock to preside over justice. Only Bern appeared the most calm, even with a slight leap of joy, because he felt things were beginning to become interesting. He walked up to the portrait, tilted his head behind his back, and asked in a teasing tone, "Are you sure this melon is ripe?" Neric. "Stinky little devil, what are you talking nonsense about?" The fairy said wickedly, "I warn you not to play any tricks. Either guess what the card in my hand is obediently, or get out of my way and don't block my work. Do you work?" Bern seems to have caught some flashy spots. "Watson, what do you think?" After talking to Watson about his overall plan for his small game, Sherlock asked his assistant with a hint of shyness. Known for his calm and composed demeanor, he rarely showed a hint of unease. "What do I think?" Watson repeated. There was no answer, but I turned my head and drifted away. "You bastard. I need to go check the certificate of deposit at Gringotts to see how much money we have left, and then choose to run away overnight or lose everything." Upon seeing this, Sherlock quickly urged the Mount to catch up with his old friend. In order to maintain mobility like a living person, he specially asked the household elf to erect his portrait on the back of a fire crab. Although named fire crab, this magical animal actually looks more like a turtle, with only 8 legs. Due to the protrusions on their back armor resembling clusters of gemstones, and the fact that some shameless wizards like to use their shells as crucibles, fire crabs were overhunted and endangered in the 18th to 19th centuries. In order to protect them, the International Federation of Witches has passed a resolution specifically stipulating that only individuals with an adoption permit can raise this magical animal in other places, except for the fire crabs that breed in their natural habitat. This summer camp for children of the pure blood family, with many high-quality sponsors like Lucius Malfoy, allowed Sherlock to legally own a fire crab as a teaching tool. Its function was to carry Sherlock's magical portrait around. The movement speed of the fire crab is not slow, and Sherlock riding it quickly caught up with his old friend. "Watson, listen to me," he began to fight fiercely again. "My attempt is definitely meaningful. This could be a groundbreaking educational reform. Before entering a magic school, young wizards must showcase their talents, which is known as the process of awakening the power of a magical uprising. Magic riots can be roughly divided into 2 types. Either under certain pressure or when filled with some hope, the young wizard's body unconsciously performs magic. However, in the long history of the wizarding world, these 2 types of magical uprisings by young wizards have mostly occurred through various coincidences. Even these pure-blooded aristocratic children still lack systematic guidance in terms of magical awakening. That's why I designed this game. I want to use external pressure and a little bit of gaming to try and find a way for the little wizards to start their magical awakening process more easily and smoothly. Of course, Sherlock did not mention that the process of conducting experiments and exploring truth would indeed make him very happy. Note: when a child first displays their magical talent, a feather pen called the acceptance pen will fly out of the ink bottle, attempting to record the child's name in the admission book. End of this chapter.